In this new video for Daily Soccer Planet, we will talk about the moments that occur behind a soccer match. That is, in the locker rooms, where we will address the fights and motivational speeches that have marked the history of the sport we love so much. Cristiano Ronaldo's anger in the Juventus locker room, 2021. The scenes drew attention due to the insults that the Portuguese star gave in the locker room of the Italian team when the team was eliminated from the Champions League in the 2021 season. This was demonstrated in the Amazon docu-series All or Nothing, where he was seen completely dismayed when Juventus was eliminated from the Champions League against Porto at that time. Unpublished scenes from the Vecchia Signora locker room captured the attention of the planet due to the insults of the forward in front of all his teammates, with complaints about the lack of play and hierarchy. We played shit, always. I include myself. But you have to tell the truth. To play this Champions League match, you have to have personality, were some of the phrases that the international star slipped out, while ignoring the requests for calm from his teammate, Colombian Juan Cuadrado. Immediately, the coach, Andrea Pirlo, appeared to stop the tense atmosphere that was experienced in the Italian locker room. "Enough, Chris, enough, Juan," the strategist asked before giving the instructions to go out to play the second half. However, Porto was the team that kept the tickets for the next stage, thanks to a great performance by the Argentine goalkeeper Agustin Marchesín. He was one of those responsible for the elimination of Juventus in the round of 16 of the competition. Although the Turin team won 3-2 in extra time, the Portuguese advanced due to the goals scored as visitors. In the first leg, played in Portugal, the Portuguese team had won 2-1, the same result with which the duel in northern Italy ended in favour of the home team, so the qualification had to be decided in extra time. Despite the 3 goals conceded, Marchesín, with a handful of great interventions, was one of the reasons why the Portuguese team always had the game within reach, especially after being left with 10 men due to the expulsion of Taremi, when only 8 minutes of the second half had been played. Sergio Oliveira scored both goals for Porto, the first from a penalty and the second from a free kick, while for Juve Federico Chiesa on 2 occasions, and the Frenchman Adrien Rabiot scored. And the farewell was framed by the rage of Cristiano Ronaldo. The fight between Teófilo Gutiérrez and Sebastián Saja at Racing Club, 2012. In April 2012, in an Argentine League match, Independiente defeated Racing 4-1 in a classic game in Avellaneda that went Libertadores de America Stadium. That day, Colombian Teófilo Gutiérrez confronted his teammates and threatened them with a gun in an unprecedented event that shocked Argentine football. Since then, there have been several protagonists who have remembered that event, but never with such clarity as Brian Sarmiento did. The former player who at the time defended Racing's colours spoke on the programme Son Aviones and recounted in detail what happened. That team, led by Alfio Basile, arrived at the match against its historic rival in a bad way, and that is why the coach had warned his players beforehand that if they lost, they would step aside. Faced with this, the team decided to give their best to give joy to their fans, who had gone 3 games without a win, and to support the coach. The story began in the best way for the academy team, because at 26 minutes Gabriel Hauchi took advantage of an error by Gabriel Milito in the start and assisted Teo Gutiérrez for the 1-0. But the Red turned it around with a double by Facundo Parra. In the second half, the visitors were left with 10 men due to the expulsion of Bruno Zuccolini, and when his team needed the most peace of mind, the Colombian forward changed the match. Teo goes and insults the referee, Sergio Pezzotta, face-to-face out of nowhere, recalled Sarmiento. Red card for Gutiérrez and Racing, with 9, could not resist what ended up being a thrashing by goals from Patricio Vidal and Patricio Julian Rodriguez. The match ended, and Sebastián Saja was saying, come in, and don't let any manager come in, and don't let anyone come in. And I said, bye. When we came in, he, Teo, was already dressed with his backpack, all ready to leave, as if it were, that's it, where is the third half here? The fact that he was sent off in a childish manner and his attitude of wanting to leave as if nothing had happened infuriated Sebastian Saya, captain of that team. Saya comes, starts to take off his gloves. "You're done with a joke. I'm going to kill you." 3 times he invited him to fight, and Teo didn't want to stop, so he slapped him. "Aren't you going to stop?" "Ah, you're not going to stop." Boom. And then we kind of separated them, and Teo jumped from behind, gave him a flying kick. Like Jackie Chan, he hit him and fell to the ground. On the ground, we kicked him a couple of times, and he stood up, and that's when he pulled out his gun. He pulled it out of his backpack like this and said, "Come now," and I was half a metre away from him. Initially, several players claimed that the gun was fake or even a paintball gun, but apparently it was a compressed air gun. And Lucas, Avaldano would kill you. I see him sit down, take off his boots and stand in front of him. "Shoot, because if not, I'll break everything," he said to him. And that's when the police came in. Faced with such a scandal, the last to enter the locker room was Alfio Basile. And Basile comes out like this and says, "What is a war movie this?" and leaves again. Shortly after, he resigned and ended his cycle. He also announced that from that moment on, he decided not to coach any team again. In 2018, Teo himself had recalled that episode in a chat with the partisan radio station SOS Racing. "It was something unexpected. Nobody expected that. I didn't expect it myself. I hadn't even thought about it. It was something that happened at the moment. I also understand my teammates. They were angry because I had been expelled," he explained. "At that moment, I understood and reacted in a way that I will blame myself for all my life. My teammates conveyed their affection, their love, for everything I had been doing. They reproached me for the expulsion because they said that I was a very important player on the field, that I transmitted a lot of fear to the rival in football matters," he stressed. For several years, Teo and Saya did not contact each other again until the beginning of 2018. Gutierrez, who played for Junior of Colombia, clashed with Guarani of Paraguay, which was managed by Saha. I approached him. He looked at me and we crossed paths. I apologised for everything that happened, and he said, "Relax, you know that I appreciate you a lot." It is a subject that remains there beyond what they want to invent. We are 2 human beings. I did not want to talk about the subject out of respect for racing and my teammates, he acknowledged. The story of the gun. Avaldano, another of the protagonists of the story, said in 2018 that he was partly responsible for the gun being there. "I was the pioneer. In the pre-season, I carried a compressed air gun, and in the afternoon, we would start shooting in the corridors from the head down. They were Teflon bullets and they left their mark. It was a time when I was practicing shooting, and paintball was in fashion. We would go to play with other members of the squad in a giant abandoned refrigerator near the Arsenal of Sarandi Field. It was great. Then Teo bought one and took it to the training camp to practice. They were fake." If you're passionate about soccer and love staying up to date with everything that happens, from transfers and the latest news to intimate stories like what happens in the locker rooms, subscribe to our channel to stay informed about everything happening in the beautiful game. The day an Argentine club was attacked in the locker room during a final, 2012. Sao Paulo of Brazil was beating Tigre 2-0 until half-time, when the Argentine players were ambushed and attacked by the club's private security in the locker room. According to the complaint, several were beaten, hit with bottles and beaten with sticks. Meanwhile, the Brazilian team came out onto the field and waited until referee Ossis ended the match. The home team was comfortably beating Tigre at the Morumbi Stadium in the 2012 Copa Sudamericana final until half-time, which ended dramatically and with several clashes between Argentines and Brazilians on the field on the way to the locker room. When the Argentine players arrived at the locker room, they were ambushed and attacked by the club's private security. According to witnesses, goalkeeper Damian Albiol had a revolver put to his chest. Others were beaten, hit with bottles and beaten with sticks. Several were injured. Meanwhile, the Brazilian team came out onto the field and waited until Chilean referee Enrique Osses called the game off. Not suspended, but terminated by abandonment. "I saw that there were players who were attacked, but I don't know by whom," he said on Fox Sports. CONMEBOL was quick to set up the stage for the awards ceremony, which was attended by its leaders, also determined to erase any incident from the official report. The San Pablo players celebrated, while the Tigre players, still dismayed, continued to be beaten in the locker room. It had been a very long night. It began with attacks on the minibus and insults during the warm-up beforehand. Things that shouldn't happen but are part of football. But having 15 guys waiting to hit you with sticks and pull out a gun? No, said Martin Galmarini. Tigre Mayor Sergio Massa explained that the strategy was to delay the decision not to go out onto the field in order to allow Tigre fans to leave the stadium without being attacked. "We came here representing the AFA, not Tigre, and we hope that the AFA will ensure that this does not end like this." The Argentine delegation went to file the police report with the Argentine consul. Neither the players nor the Sao Paulo leaders were interested in the situation of their Argentine colleagues. They celebrated as if they had not decided to go out onto the field on their own initiative and not because of the incidents they had suffered. In turn, the leader Roma Osuna, treasurer of CONMEBOL, said, "I believe them that they were attacked, they were excited, but that's how things are. Later we will hear their arguments. Now it's time to give the awards. The show must go on, and the shame too. After exploring these iconic moments that have shaped soccer history from behind the locker room doors, we want to hear your opinion. What do you think best defines the spirit of the locker room in soccer? Is it the intense emotions like fights and frustration after a loss, or the inspiring speeches that motivate teams to achieve glory? Leave your comments or suggestions below. We'll be reading them.